Well, hey everybody, welcome back to Palm Tree Life. I am Tim, and today we're going to be going over just an overview of the court positions. I want to take some time with the new DLC just to kind of go through them, explain them a little bit, and what to look for, maybe some ways that you can utilize them to benefit your playthrough. So first off, there's a few things to remember. There's three types of positions. They fit into different categories. So there's common court positions, which it doesn't matter if you are a king or an emperor, or if you just have your one domain title. All of the common court positions fit into any title that you would have. Then you have the royal court positions, where you have to have a court. You have to be a king or an emperor to have those positions. And then there's special positions that fit into very specific traditions or cultures, or different areas across the map, where they're not going to be in every courtroom. They're going to be in very specific courtrooms. Something to remember as well is, if you want to replace somebody that you've given a position to, you're going to take a 200 prestige hit to revoke. Early on in your rule, that could really hurt. If you're an established leader, we know that may not be that difficult over time, but early on, that could hurt if you've got to replace somebody that you've put in there. And then something else to remember is that salary fluctuates. It's not the exact same base salary and same salary for everyone. It will adjust, it will fluctuate depending on their aptitude, and probably just as you grow throughout the game. I haven't paid super close attention to it, but it does fluctuate. So it's not going to be the same salary for everybody all the time. So let's get into our first group of positions. We're going to look at common first, then we'll jump into the royal court positions, and then we will look at the very specific special court positions. And I will include all of the chapter titles, so if there's a specific one that you want to jump to, feel free to go there and check it out. The first common court position is the Antiquarian. The Antiquarian takes care of all of the artifacts that you get as you're going through your playthrough. So you may get these through sieges or raids, or have somebody make them for you, and they take care of them, and it helps them decay at a slower rate. So it can be from -7% to 35% based on their aptitude to slow down their decay. They can also, you have to have an Antiquarian to reforge or repair the artifacts, and there is a time limit on it. And so you may not need this for every single ruler you have, but you're probably going to need an Antiquarian for at least every other ruler you have, just because they do decay. And if you don't want to lose them, you do have to repair and reforge them. On the aptitude side, an Antiquarian is really, the learning skill is what you're looking at, and for every one learning skill that they have, it's multiplied by 2.5. So if you have someone who is a learning skill of 10, they're actually a 25 automatically in aptitude, so they would already be that second aptitude level. Then if you go administrator, shy, if they've completed an inspiration, it adds to their aptitude in this area. So it's very important. The other thing with this is, if you put somebody in this position, they will have a +5 opinion of you, so that can help get positive opinion of certain specific people. They cannot have another position though, so when you put somebody in here, they can't fill another role, so you have to remember that. And then they do get prestige themselves, so if you have somebody that you're trying to really establish, maybe a son or something like that, that's going to take over the kingdom, they have some aptitude in this area, you can get them some extra prestige before they take over in this role. If you want someone to fill this role of Antiquarian, though, you have to remember it can't be your spouse, it cannot be a vassal, and it can't be a counselor. So it's going to be pretty much a courtier, a guest, like it's going to be somebody in that realm that's specifically going to fill this role. An Antiquarian can also, you can make the decision to send them on and commission an artifact where they will specifically make something for you. And so if they're even under inspiration, that helps them even more in the aptitude side of things. So if maybe you don't have anything and you need somebody specific that can make those artifacts for you, you can choose a decision that will cause them to make it. The next court position for the common court is the Court Jester. So the effects are very based off aptitude, but there's monthly court grandeur that you get 10 to 20% based on their aptitude. You get a court grandeur bonus based on their aptitude, and then you get a possibility of relieving stress. So you can get up to 25% reduced stress each year. So if you have a character that's particularly stressed out, this can help them lose more stress if they just have a court jester. The best aptitude here is going to be a diplomat, somebody with diplomacy. If they have athletic, poet, if they're gregarious, shrewd, or stubborn, it just adds to their aptitude. And there's no limit. So if they have a high diplomacy, there's no max on it. You can just keep adding. So I would say this is one of those areas where you could potentially get a very high aptitude person filling this role. Now, for the person that you put in here, you would want to put someone in here that you don't like. That has a high aptitude, but you don't necessarily want them to succeed, because anybody filling this role is going to lose prestige. They have a chance of hostile scheme power. They have a chance for a hostile scheme success chance to go down. They don't like the liege. I mean, obviously, and they can't have another position either. This can be somebody of duchy or above title rank. It can't be a counselor, and it can't be an indirect vassal candidate. So those are the areas that it cannot fill. But anybody else is game to fill this role. Our next common court position is the court physician. This is a very well-known position if you've been playing Crusader Kings very long, because it came with the original game, but it causes more court grandeur based off the aptitude. It can get a bonus based off it. It performs this position performs the medical treatments, and so higher aptitude equals better candidate. It cannot be a vassal, though. It has to be somebody that's not a vassal. They do have a high opinion. They gain an opinion of liege if they fill this role. They get learning if they fill this role. And they get monthly prestige. But you have to remember, this is also a powerful agent, and that term powerful agent means that you're putting them in a position where they could take your life or they could save your life. And so you don't want somebody filling this role that hates you. You want somebody filling this role that tends to like you. And then you can see what makes them good at their aptitude. They are a learning, education, and then the normal traits of herbalist, mystic, novice physician, miracle worker physician, renowned physician. And if for some reason you wanted to put a blind person in as a physician, that will really hurt your aptitude, I think, obviously, because they can't see what they're doing. So that would be the court physician. Our next position is the Seneschal. A Seneschal is basically the administrator of the kingdom. So it's almost like a second steward. But this steward, the Seneschal, is basically focused on control growth. So they're going to help keep that control growth down, or actually to keep control of your kingdom. So it's going to help your control grow in your kingdom. And so you get more aptitude based off stewardship. You can only max out at 50. So if you do have somebody with stewardship over 20, it's not going to do a lot for you, but it can up to 20. And then administrator and overseer. And I actually think this makes sense that martial lifestyle trait tree of overseer fits into this, because they really do. It's martial and it's steward. Like, it plays off both even when you get to the final one. And so it creates the aptitude here where maybe you have another person, another like really good commander or military person that has gotten overseer, and you don't fit them into your council, but you could put them in as your seneschal to help with that control growth. So if you're expanding your kingdom rapidly, this is probably a good position to fill. The person filling this position also gets a positive opinion of the liege, gets some monthly prestige. They can't have another position. This is the only position they can have. A counselor cannot fill this role, a vassal cannot fill this role, and a spouse cannot fill this role. So you have to fill it with somebody that's a guest. Maybe it's just somebody, or a courtier, somebody in your kingdom that maybe you don't want to quite give them that and vassalize them and give them land, but they really have some good traits where you want to help. You're giving them a position without having a long-term family issue with them. The next common court position is the Bodyguard, and you actually can have 2 of these positions filled. So there's a 50% chance to prevent an assassination murder scheme. So if you really think, like I'm thinking, if you've got a lot of family members and your kingdom is really branching out, or there's some title claimants out there, or there could potentially be some independence wars, or maybe you have a kingdom where there's a lot of intrigue going on, you probably want some bodyguards to protect you from the murder schemes going on around you. It's a prowess skill. It's heavily focused on prowess, so you get +4 per prowess. So if you've got somebody with like 13 prowess, that's max. So and 13 isn't like super hype. So a 13 prowess max out. And then if they have Blade Master, Gallant, I think this is really cool that they added in, you get +10 for Paranoid. Like, that makes sense. If you're going to be paranoid, you would actually be a good bodyguard because you're not sure why those people are hanging around. I also think it's cool that they added the +20 for the Shield Maiden. That makes sense too, that they would be protecting the one that's letting them fight. And then Craven makes sense. If you're going to put somebody in there that's Craven, they should be scared a little bit. They're probably not wanting to actually be a bodyguard, and so that is a negative factor against you. They do get a positive opinion of the liege. They get some monthly prestige, and they cannot have another position. So this is another one of those you can only serve there. You can't be a vassal, can't be the spouse, can't be a counselor, and then your gender does have to match the martial custom. So if you only have men serving in the military, that's all that can fill as the bodyguard. So this may be one of those other areas where you want to get to the neutral gender, where you can go back and forth between to get the best possible bodyguards. That might cause you to want to think through that as you're going through your playthrough. With the Royal Court DLC, this next position of Court Tutor, I think, has become pretty important on the learning side of things because it helps you learn languages, where if you're in an area with a lot of cultures and a lot of languages, or a lot of different court languages where there are courts and you've got to speak to them, or you want to engage with them and you need to speak their language, a court tutor becomes very important. It could also be important because it unlocks the have child study language, so you can actually cause your children to learn languages even before you end up playing with them. So by the time you have them, they already know the language. It also improves education outcomes, and I think you know how important that can be in this game, where any little edge you can get for a little bit more education can really go a long way. And so I think that's very important too. A court tutor gets a opinion of liege bonus as well as a monthly prestige bonus. They cannot have another position in your court. They can't be a counselor, spouse, or vassal. And so this is going to be I think what you should be seeing is that the courtiers are becoming much more important in the Royal Court DLC. You need courtiers. You need people in your court to be able to use in these positions. You have, it's a learning aptitude, obviously, so shrewd, patient, quick, intelligent, they really add to it. And then you get +20 if 15 points in every skill. So I thought that was interesting. If you just have an overall good person, that you get +20, just because they are really good at everything. +40 if they're genius. Makes sense if they're shy or reclusive, they wouldn't want to be around people or teaching people, and so you get negatives on those. And finally, we have the personal champion. So this would be really good for a ruler, especially really good for a ruler where you like to create dread, but maybe you don't have the greatest prowess. So you want to be kind of a feared ruler, but you don't really have the sword to back it up. You want a personal champion because it's going to cause your dread to decay slower based off their aptitude. You do get prestige based on their aptitude, and then they can take your place in the duel. So if you're really good at prowess, maybe you don't need them. You just have them there just in case, but they can. So maybe you're going up, if you're in an area or culture or part of the world where a lot of trial by combat duels are happening, you at least have the option to send them. So if you go up against somebody where it could be 50-50, you can at least have the personal champion take your place. This individual gets a positive opinion of the liege. They also get some monthly prestige. to go along with it. They cannot be a vassal. They need to be a courtier. They need to be a guest. They need to be one of your knights or champions. And then the gender has to match the martial custom. So once again, if it's a male only, knights and fighting, that's all you can use. So once again, one of those areas where maybe it's better to try to get into the middle and neutral and be able to use men and women, because you have more courtiers to be able to pull from. And then you can see the different aptitude traits here. It makes sense. Prowess, once again, when you're at basically 13, you can't get any more bonus out of this. But then if you got the Blade Masters, if you're Brave, Shield Maiden, those are all good. It would make sense if they're Craven, that wouldn't be good. Blind makes sense, they wouldn't be good. But this is an interesting one if they're maimed. So if you do have them as a personal champion, you do want to consider if you want to forbid them from fighting in wars, because once they get maimed, you could lose them, or at least their aptitude is going to go way, way down. So that's something to consider as the personal champion. This next group of court positions are the royal court positions. So these can only be filled within kingdoms and within empires, where you have to have your royal court, and then these positions will open up. The first position we're going to look at is the cupbearer. So the cupbearer has a monthly court grandeur change based on their aptitude and bonus, and it can stop poison murder schemes. So important there. It actually has a 20% chance to prevent the murder schemes. This person has a high opinion of their liege, which honestly they would have to if they're going to taste the wine or the drink for them every time. And they do get a monthly prestige bonus. They can't have another position. This is the only position they fill. And this is another one of those powerful agent areas. So you have to remember that. So if somebody hates you, you probably don't want to put them in this spot, because they could conveniently forget to taste the drink and let you die. And so you need to be aware of that. Keep that in mind. If they are a counselor, a spouse, or a vassal, they cannot fill this role. They have to fill it outside of that. And then somebody who is honest and trusting does better at this. This is a diplomatic aptitude skill. So if you have 20 diplomacy is the highest you can get for this to max out. And if they're deceitful, aptitude goes down. I actually think -10 deceitful for this aptitude is probably not enough, because if they were deceitful, you may not want them there. But that is something to consider if you're going to put them into this role. Probably don't want somebody who's deceitful. Our next position is the High Almoner, and basically this position is the one who gives out the money to the poor or distributes money, which is why you get a piety bonus from this based on their aptitude. You also get a grandeur bonus. It would make sense that you would get a bonus for giving away money to people, and you get court grandeur change percentage based on their aptitude. So those are all very good things. The position filling this role has a +10 opinion of their liege, so they actually get higher bonus if they're filling this. They also get a +1 to their learning, and they get monthly prestige. They cannot be a vassal if they're going to fill this role, though. And then you see in the aptitude, the more they are to wanting to be high piety, the better they are, because this is all about learning. And the more they are to being greedy and all about money and making money, the less likely they are to have a high aptitude here. So this would be a good position if you are trying to reform the faith or do something heavy in piety, maybe even do a lot of holy wars. This might be a position you want to look at to have filled, just to add that bonus on to what you're already getting. The Master of the Horse position causes your knight effectiveness to go up. So when you have this filled, it can cause your knights to become even more powerful than they already are. And when you can match this with even more bonuses that you could get, it really can make your knights very powerful. It also gives a grandeur bonus and change based off their aptitude. This is going to be somebody with martial and prowess. So you can get a bonus for the martial side and a bonus for the prowess side. So if you just had high martial and high prowess to fill the Master of the Horse, you could max out at 100 and they could be the top tier 5 level if they just had high martial and high prowess. If they are an overseer, it also gives them 10. It makes sense that the overseer position is really kind of a little bit steward, a little bit marshal, and so they added into this position where it can really, really benefit you with the master of the horse. And then just following that, you have the master of the hunt, where once again you get court grandeur bonuses, and then it aids when using the hunt activity. So it'll give special hunt activity events when you have a master of the hunt, especially one with higher aptitude. They will have a higher opinion of you as the liege. They actually get a +1 prowess bonus for this, and they get monthly prestige. You can make a vassal. They can fill this role of the master of the hunt. I should have said this for master of the horse, but a vassal can fill that role as well. So this is where your vassals could come in and help you in these positions. Also, you can see their aptitude, martial, and prowess. Once again, if you had high martial and high prowess, you could almost get really, really high aptitude just from those two positions. But then if you add in the braves and the hunters, it makes sense. If they're a hunter, they would be good at being the master of the hunter. And obviously, Craven would take that away. So definitely a position worth looking at, especially if you think you're going to go on a lot of hunts. A court artificer is... they give the grandeur bonus, but they also get a chance to become inspired to make things for you. So this position has a 10 to 30% yearly chance to gain inspiration. So if you really want to churn out the artifacts, this is a position you want filled, because they will regularly be inspired, and if they have a higher aptitude, it's more likely they're going to be inspired often. So their aptitude is +1 per any skill. I'm not sure if prowess gets added in. I know the regular 5 do. I think prowess does, just because it does add it in other areas. So basically, if you can add all of your skills up to 100, you are the highest possible aptitude to fill this role. So if you just have somebody that's the sum of all, like they don't have one that's really, really good, but all of their skills together equal a lot of really good stuff and a high total, they would have really good aptitude for this. So a counselor cannot fill this role, a spouse can't, but they can be inspired or complete an inspiration here. And you can actually have up to 3 court artificers. So this isn't just for one person, this is multiple. So once again, this is where you would want to add in guests that are coming in that just have a high total, and you can just keep having them churn out different artifacts for you. As long as you got the money and you got the time and you want to fill the position, you can do it. These people have a high opinion of liege. They get a high monthly prestige. They actually get +2 monthly prestige filling this role, so that's really high. They can't have another position, though, and if you ever do fire them, they will immediately leave your court and go somewhere else. So this is a good position to look at if you want to add some items into your court. This is the position you want to fill. The next royal court position is the court musician. So you can get grandeur bonuses for this. It increases your opinion that you get that are gained during a feast. So you can get +30 opinion for 10 years from feasts without musical theorists, and you can get +65 for 10 years with feasts with musical theorists. So it can add a big bonus to you. It does give the person filling this role a better opinion of you. It gives them monthly prestige. They cannot have another position, though, and you cannot fill it with a vassal, spouse, or counselor. You can only have one of these in your court, and it's a diplomatic one, skill. So you can max out at 50 if they're a poet. If you have the musical theorist tradition, you already get 1 aptitude point. You're automatically +20. And if they're gregarious, you're already sitting on the verge of having them average to good in aptitude just because of your tradition and their 1 personality trait. Like, that goes a long way. And then just add in a little bit of diplomacy, and you can have a really good court musician. And following up the court musician, we have the court poet. So here they get a 10 to 30% yearly chance to gain inspiration. So here's another inspiration opportunity for them. They add grandeur to your courtroom. They get a bit more positive opinion of you. They also get monthly prestige, but they cannot have another position. So something to look at there. It is a learning and diplomatic aptitude skill. And then if they're gregarious, because once again, they're going to be in the courtroom, they're going to be around for all of those different courtroom settings, they get automatically plus 15. And if you have the refined poetry tradition, you automatically get 20 on aptitude just because you have that tradition. This position can be filled by a poet candidate. It cannot be filled by a counselor, spouse, or vassal. So you're seeing that you're going to want to pay attention to who you're making a vassal, because if they can fill these roles for you, a lot of these court positions cannot be filled by vassals. So it's something to remember as you're thinking through who you're going to put in these positions. Our next position is the Executioner. So this can cause you to gain dread if you have an Executioner, and then that dread will decay slower. And this position can publicly execute prisoners for increased control and popular opinion. So it's like keeping people under your thumb, where if you execute somebody publicly, control in your kingdom can get figured out pretty quickly, and people can, oh yeah, we love you, and you can get really popular very quickly. So if you're in a kingdom where you're trying to expand rapidly and you're trying to get control quickly, just have a lot of prisoners and just publicly execute them. What's cool about this position is that it can be filled by a criminal. So sometimes, I noticed this in the game, maybe you have too, you'll have the peasant revolt, right? And that peasant leader oftentimes has a really high prowess, and so they're easy to defeat, and then they're sitting in your prison. You can possibly turn them into an executioner because they have that high prowess. They might have intrigue, but they definitely have the prowess where they can, and there's no max out on that aptitude. So if they are if they're at 25 prowess, you get that 50. I know that's still kind of max for most of them, but they have high aptitude, and it's really easy to fill this executioner role just because you can throw a prisoner at it. It does help the one filling this role. It does help them have a higher opinion of you, but they do lose prestige. So if you want somebody to gain prestige, don't put them in this position. And if you do put them in this position, the existing crimes that they have are forgiven. So you no longer can execute them yourself or treat them like a prisoner because those crimes have been forgiven. And this person cannot fill another role. You can't fill it with a counselor, spouse, or vassal, but I think with this one, most of us wouldn't do that. Most of us are going to fill it with a criminal that has really good prowess, maybe is a little sadistic. Actually, I noticed that says negative 25 if a torture, but it's actually plus 25 if it's a torture. So sorry that I got that one wrong there. It's plus 25 if it's a torture. So if they're sadistic and they already have a torture and they have high prowess, like, you could have a really good aptitude person here. Next, we have the food taster. So we already talked about the cupbearer, but now we have the food taster. Very similar in position. So there's 33% chance to prevent a poison murder scheme. They add court grandeur. They help you against enemy hostile scheme success chances. And honestly, they also can help you lose weight. So if you are gluttonous or overweight, if you fill this role of the food taster, you're actually helping yourself lose weight because they're eating some of your food, so you're not eating all of the food. And so it actually helps you lose weight. Something to remember, even though it allows them to have a better opinion of you and gives them monthly prestige, they are a powerful agent. So again, don't put somebody here that hates you. This person cannot fill another position. This is the only position they can fill. It cannot be filled by a counselor, spouse, or vassal. And then it's an intrigue skill. And so the higher the intrigue level, the more aptitude you can have. And then if they're a comfort eater, it actually helps you because they're going to want to eat. And then if you have the culinary artist tradition, it automatically gives you aptitude. So this would be, if you can find somebody and bring them into your court that's gluttonous, wants to eat, but still has intrigue, especially, like, you can get a high aptitude here with this role. This next position is the lady in waiting, and honestly, it's a royal court position, but it is a little bit special in that you can only have a lady in waiting if you are a woman ruler. So if you have a male player character, this position won't even show up. But if you do have a woman player character that is ruling, you will have the lady in waiting. She will help you lose stress, more stress, and she helps against hostile scheme resistance. But in saying that, once again, it's a powerful agent. They are very close to you, and so you want somebody in this role that likes you. The woman filling this role cannot have another position. They do get monthly prestige, so this might be one of those things where if you have a child that can take the throne for you, so like it's woman passing to woman, and they like you, your player heir likes you, you could fill this. You could give them 1 monthly prestige every single month. That could really build up over time. It has to be a female. The candidate has to be a female. It cannot be a counselor. It cannot be a vassal. And you can actually have up to 2 ladies in waiting in this position within your kingdom if you are a woman ruler. If they're honest and gregarious, just helps you out that much more. If you look at that, if you have someone with a diplomacy of 20 is honest and gregarious, you are going to hit your 100 aptitude, and they are going to be the best possible that you could be at that position. Our last royal position in our court is the Royal Architect. The Royal Architect can help you lower construction time, so 5 to 30% based on their aptitude. So if you're building a lot of buildings, like it's time to do that, that can really help you lower the time to be able to do that. They do get a better opinion of you. They do get monthly prestige. In this position, it can be a vassal. So you could put, if you have a really good steward, they could fill this role for you. So it helps, they'll do all the stewardship tasks, but then they could also help reduce construction time. If you just throw them into this Royal Architect position, it can help you like that as well. Our final group of court positions are the special positions. So each one of these positions are going to be very special to something tied to a specific culture or area, or something about a kingdom. They're not going to be in every kingdom. They're not going to be in every court. You have to have these very specific things about you to be able to have these positions. Our first one is the Chief Eunuch. So the Chief Eunuch has hostile scheme power and resistance. So they will help you get hostile schemes done or protect you from them. They also give you a ton of court grandeur, 5 to 15% based off aptitude, and then you can get a bonus too just based off aptitude. So very powerful in hostile schemes, but also in grandeur. It does cause them to have a better opinion of you. It does give them more prestige, but something you got to remember, if they're in the hostile scheme area, they're going to be a powerful agent, and so you need them to like you. And you can only have one of these positions when you have this, but it can only be found in the court eunuchs and Byzantine traditions. So if you're playing in the Byzantine area, or you have one of their traditions somehow by doing cultural divergence or something, you can have court eunuchs, but they can't be a vassal. So they could possibly be a candidate, but if they're a vassal, it keeps them from this. If they're infirm or blind, it really, really hurts you. And actually, that says -20 infirm. It's actually -50 infirm. So that really hurts you if they're infirm or blind. And then if this is an intrigue and diplomacy aptitude, so if you have somebody that's good at diplomacy, good at intrigue, a little bit of both, they can have a high aptitude within this, and it really can help you with hostile schemes and grandeur. Another special court position is the Chief Qadi. I think that's how you say that, Qadi. Hopefully I got that right. But they can give you +1 learning for every level of devotion that you have, and they can give you more piety. So it's very powerful, but this can only be had in the Islamic religions. So you've got to pay attention to that, and the gender affects it. So if you have certain gender doctrine, that will allow you to add men and women, or only one of them based off your gender doctrine and what it allows. This person does have a +10 opinion of their liege. It gives them a +1 diplomacy, and they get a monthly prestige bonus. And so this is a learning trait person, so generous, just, scholar, temperate, all good things, but negative if it's arbitrary or if the individual is arbitrary or greedy. So if you're in the Islamic regions or you were trying to convert to Islamic religions, you can have a chief Qadi in your court. Then we have the court gardener. So the court gardener causes your courtiers and guests to have a +10 opinion of you, so it really helps. It can also cause development growth in your realm capital. So if you're in a position where you need to develop your capital, you can get 10 to 70% development growth based off their aptitude, which is massive for quick development growth, especially if they have high stewardship aptitude. You can really fill this quickly. It does cause them to have a better opinion of you. They do get a monthly prestige. They cannot hold another position though, and in order to get this court position, you have to have the garden architect's tradition. So you need to add it into your culture if you want this type of position. And so if you're planning on developing a lot, trying to get the garden architect's tradition might be really important. This would, especially if you're playing tall, this would be a huge one that you could add to really develop your capital in a big way. This person cannot be a vassal or a counselor. And then obviously the more stewardship you can add in, if they're a gardener, if they're a herbalist, those all add into their aptitude and ability to be really good at this. The next position is the Garuda. Now the best way I can explain this is it's almost like having more bodyguards, but it's almost like bodyguards on the battlefield rather than in the courtroom. So they're like your personal bodyguards on the battlefield, and you can have up to 5 Garuda. Now your culture has to have the Garuda warriors, which heavily happens within the Hindu, like the Indian and some of the like Chinese, Tibetan, Asian areas. So you just have to pay attention to that on whether or not your specific culture. It could be Buddhist, it could be Hindu, but you have to pay attention. If you have this Garuda warriors tradition, it's like adding 5 bodyguards into your battle. It does cause your court grandeur to grow. It helps your dread gain. It also helps your dread decay less quickly. You're less likely to be captured in battle, and you're less likely to die in battle. So once again, this will help you in any case, but if you're playing tall and you just have less of, or maybe you're kind of the small guy in the area, the small country in the area, and there's some big boys trying to throw around against you, this lets you get out of some tight situations where you might lose some land or something like that, but you won't lose your life or you won't be captured. These Garuda have a better opinion of you, and they get +8 prowess just because they're identified as a Garuda. So think about it. If they're already 25 prowess, they're instantly 33 just because you put them in this position. But they do lose prestige monthly if they fill this role. I already said they have to have Garuda warriors, and then obviously the better martial, prowess, blade master they are, the more aptitude they have. But I think this is one of those roles where you could have a really high aptitude pretty easily. And it's a knight candidate, so they do have to be a knight, but if they're going to have high martial and high prowess, they're already going to be one of your knights. So that shouldn't be that big an issue. Our next court position for specialities is the Keeper of the Swans. And so to fill this role, the only court in the entire world that can have this court position is the Kingdom of England title. So you have to have the Kingdom of England in order to have this title at all. So there is no other way to add it. A vassal can fill this role. It's in the area of hunter, so the better they are at stewardship and or hunting, the better they're going to be at this position. It helps you get diplomacy per level of fame, and it does add court grandeur. It does give them a +10 opinion of you, and it gives them monthly prestige. So it's kind of a niche sort of position. It does give you a little bit of benefit. It does help you at diplomacy, but only if you have the Kingdom of England. And finally, the last court position we're going to look at is the cultural emissary. This is a very, very specific position as well. You can only get this position is in the dynasty legacy matrix, table that you can see. The customs, the customs row, you have to have customs dynasty legacy level 4, and then this position will unlock where you'll get a cultural emissary, and it can add a monthly prestige based on their aptitude. It can add different cultural opinion, so you can have this person help you make the other cultures, different cultures around you, like you a lot. So if you really want to diverge your culture with people around you, this is one of those positions that would be good to fill. It does give the person filling this position a better opinion of you, as well as monthly prestige. And it's obviously a diplomatic aptitude position. And then for every language they know, they get plus 10. So you could have an aptitude of 100 just because they know 10 languages. Like, you could have a full aptitude just because of that. But if they're gregarious, just, if they're a diplomat, all those things add to this. This could be one of those positions where if you just put a little bit of effort into a diplomat, it wouldn't be too hard to fill this. And anyone can fill this role. It doesn't matter if they're a vassal or not. They do have to have at least 8 diplomacy to be able to fill it, which I think I would find it weird if you put somebody in here that didn't at least have 8. And so they'll probably already have 8 or more, but you do have to have that as a requirement. Well, that wraps up our court positions overview. I hope you enjoyed it. Hoped it taught you something. Maybe you see one of these positions in a little bit of different light, or maybe you want to start looking how you can diverge your culture with some of these other cultures, just to bring a position into your courtroom that may add a little something that other people around you don't have. However it benefits you, I hope that you learned something. I hope that you have a lot of fun playing this game, because I think the Royal Court added so much flavor and texture into Crusader Kings 3. It's just a lot of fun. Thank you for taking the time to watch this video and check in on it, and I will see you next time.